Across the stars, alien scholars believe they've catalogued every apex predator in the galaxy, creatures that hunt with psychic screams, with interdimensional ambushes, with speed beyond physics. But when a human quietly asks, "Where do tigers rank?" the lecture hall falls silent. What follows isn't just a lesson in predators. It's a reminder of what danger looks like when it doesn't need to shout. Is it true your species must sleep every night, or you begin to hallucinate? The question came from a juvenile eryx in the observation gallery. Spindly limbs, feathers edged with scales, all sharp elbows and misplaced confidence. Around it, the other invited observers buzzed, pulsed, or clicked, each wearing the polite disinterest of academics, forced to endure an oddity. The oddity, in this case, was Nathan Calder. Human, representative of Earth. He cleared his throat. "Pretty much," he said. "Though, if you're lucky, the hallucinations are better than the dreams." A few sets of alien eyelids blinked in awkward sync. The hatchling recoiled slightly. Archivist Vekul, presiding over the symposium, clicked his jaw in irritation. "If Representative Calder could refrain from improvisations, we may continue." Nate leaned back into a chair, clearly designed for a species with a tail. He hadn't asked to be here. Earth's place in the galactic concord was still more tolerated than welcomed. The official line was integration in progress. The unofficial one, humans make everyone uncomfortable. The hologram above the dais shifted to display the galaxy's most celebrated predators. The Droxan cuttle lurkers, who encircled prey with electroreceptive netting. The Sylar pack shadows, a swarm intelligence that moved like smoke. The Neath phase hounds, capable of sliding between dimensions to corner their quarry. These lineages, Vekul intoned, represent apex predation. They exemplify speed, stealth, endurance, and cooperative strategy. Most have since been incorporated into controlled custodial programs, providing utility rather than unmanaged danger. "Domesticated," Nate murmured. Vekul's frills lifted sharply. "Controlled, representative. Domestication implies dependency. There is a difference." Nate tilted his head. "Where do tigers fit on your chart?" The room paused. Even the recorder drone lowered its hum, as though uncertain. Vekul blinked slowly. "Panthera tigris, earth quadruped, ambush strategy, visually striking, but limited in sensory range, no cooperative tactics, short exertion window, extinct in most wild biomes following human expansion. In Concord terms, obsolete." Nate scratched his jaw. "Sounds like you're saying they were designed wrong." "Not wrong, merely surpassed." A ripple of agreement passed through the gallery. Numbers were neat. Tigers, apparently, were not. "Ever seen one?" Nate asked. "Of course not," Vekul said. "Their populations are negligible. The archives hold complete footage and simulations, sufficient for classification." "So no," Nate said evenly. "No one here's actually been near a live one." "It is unnecessary." Nate let the silence stretch before he broke it. "I was he said. Once. The Breck observer, a massive slate-skinned philosopher warrior in the back, shifted slightly, suddenly attentive. Preserve duty, Nate continued. One got out, big Bengal male, tracked me for 6 hours before I knew he was there. Only reason I realized was because the birds stopped singing. The room quieted. Different kind of quiet this time. Nate shrugged. I get that you're impressed by predators that use psionics or blink across dimensions. The tiger's simpler, no tricks. He just waits, listens, then moves faster than something that size should be allowed to. And yet, Vakul said tightly, your kind drove them nearly extinct. Because they were too dangerous? You mean inefficient? No, Nate said. Dangerous. There's a reason my ancestors painted them on cave walls before they had language. You don't waste paint on redundancy. The archivist adjusted his chart, dismissive. Emotionally compelling, but anecdotal. Classification requires rigor. Nate stood, expression neutral. And you're ranking apex predators without ever being in a room with one. That's not science. That's taxonomy with extra steps. For a moment, no one answered. Then a low, rattling sound rolled from the Breck observer. Laughter of a sort. The rest of the gallery sat in the kind of silence that stretches too long to be comfortable. Nate didn't wait for the discussion to recover. He walked out, the silence following him down the corridor. It wasn't about tigers. Not really. It was about what the Concord feared most about humans. That they remembered danger not as data, but as stories. And stories, inconveniently, were harder to contain. The zoological archive looked more like a shrine than a lab. Sandstone walls, soft light, simulated ivy. The kind of place that whispered reverence, not research. Nate stopped at a pane-labeled terrestrial, Bengal variant, Panthera tigris. The glass rippled into jungle, damp green shadow, insects rasping. Then stripes, orange and black, impossible to miss and impossible to hold in focus. The tiger appeared without ceremony, drinking from a stream, muscles folding under hide like quiet machinery. Even through glass, Nate's breathing changed. The tiger looked, not at him, but through. He muttered, extinct twice over, once in the wild, once in memory. Fascinating, said a voice behind him. The figure was too tall, too narrow, 3 eyes set in a vertical line. Elin Carrick's, Lamier analyst. It inclined its head. I thought someone like you would come here. Someone like me? Nate asked. Someone who still believes there's a difference between an archive and an animal. They stood side by side, watching stripes fade back into foliage. On paper, Aelin said, the tiger is unremarkable. No pack structure, no psionics, ordinary senses. It underperforms engineered predators in every controlled test, which is why archivist Vakul dismissed it. On paper, Nate said. Exactly. Aelin tapped the glass. The granite conclave has seeded a proposal, an assessment, off-ledger, but sanctioned enough to exist. Organisms of interest released into parity simulations. No controls, no ethics dampers, just what they are, meeting each other. You're talking about making things fight, Nate
Nate said. Not always. Sometimes they fight. Sometimes they refuse. Either way, we learn more truth than charts allow. And you want a tiger in this? I want a human to watch it. The others will reduce the results to data. You will notice what they cannot. Nate exhaled, looking at the pain. The tiger was gone. Nothing left but jungle and quiet. Where and when? Observation Habitat Theta 9. 3 cycles. No press, no diplomatic presence. Only observers who can admit they might be wrong. Nate smiled faintly. That's not a long list. Which is why your name is on it, Aelin said. This is not a trial for the tiger. It is a trial for us. The drone in the ceiling chirped. Reminder, do not feed virtual fauna. Nate chuckled. Noted. When he boarded the transport later, he packed light, caffeine sticks, a paper notebook, and the suspicion that the Concorde had finally agreed to look danger in the eye. Somewhere behind him, an archive tiger stalked digital jungle. Somewhere ahead, 8 alien observers would try not to flinch.
The Central Zoological Archive sat awkwardly between the sterile domes of the Galactic Council complex. Where everything else was smooth alloy and cold symmetry, the archive tried to look ancient. Sandstone pillars, simulated ivy, a grand arch cut from imported marble. It was the kind of building designed to impress committees, not visitors. Nate stood outside for a long moment before going in. Yesterday, in the lecture hall, he'd seen the way the silence shifted when he mentioned tigers. Too long, too tight. He hadn't planned on stirring anything, but the room had reacted as if he'd pulled a knife from a sleeve. And once you cut that kind of silence, you couldn't ignore what it meant. The entry drone scanned his badge and chirped. Human researcher Nathan Cole. Tier 2 access granted. Proceed to archive level G3. Reminder, do not attempt to feed or interact with virtual reconstructions. Not planning to, he muttered, stepping inside. Level G3 hummed like a server vault. Thick walls embedded with processors, rows of viewports showing extinct biomes. Behind one, a swamp bubbled with reptilian things that lounged like crocodiles but wore feathers. Another showed an alien ocean teeming with glowing plankton. It was impressive in a museum way. Preserved, safe, dead. He stopped in front of a viewport labeled 287B. Panthera tigris, Bengal variant. The panel rippled, reshaping into dense jungle. A chorus of insects rose, humidity bleeding through the filters. Then the tiger appeared. It moved the way gravity was meant to move. Inevitable, patient, each step measured and silent. Orange fur and black stripes, sunlight flickering through canopy, muscles shifting under hide. When it lowered its head to drink from a stream, Nate exhaled without meaning to. The animal didn't demand space, it assumed it. Then it looked up, right at the viewport. No sound, no change in posture, just an unspoken certainty that it was aware. Nate whispered, "You're extinct twice over." Once in the wild, once in memory. Fascinating, said a voice behind him. He turned. The speaker was tall, limbs too long for its torso, 3 eyes set in a vertical line down a narrow face. Aelin Carricks, of the Lamiere. Analysts, mostly. They had a habit of leaning forward when they spoke, as though trying to step into someone's thoughts. I expected someone like you would come here, Aelin said. Someone like me? Someone who still believes there's a difference between an archive and an animal. They stood side by side, watching the tiger slip back into shadow. On paper, Ellen continued, the tiger is unremarkable. No pack structure, no advanced senses, no psionics. It loses every comparative test, which is why Vekul dismissed it yesterday. On paper, Nate said. Exactly. That is why I am here. Aelin's voice was soft, clinical. There is a proposal circulating the outer circles, an interspecies assessment, informal but tolerated. Organisms of interest released into parity simulations, no ethics filters, no interventions, just what they are in a world that does not protect them. Nate frowned. Sounds like making things fight. Sometimes they fight, sometimes they refuse. Either way, it shows more truth than charts. The Brakor suggested it, predictably, but several blocks agreed. They believe humans, and perhaps your tiger, need context. And where do I fit? You will observe. The others will reduce the trial to data streams. You will notice what they cannot. This is not a trial for the tiger. It is a trial for us. Nate looked at the viewport again. The tiger was gone, vanished into simulated jungle, leaving only a weight in the air. And you're telling me if we put one in, no tweaks, no enhancements, just a tiger, your people will actually watch? They will have to, Aelin said. He didn't answer right away. His fingers brushed the cover of the notebook in his pocket, a habit from field patrol days. He remembered 6 hours of not realizing a tiger was on his trail, only realizing because the birds had stopped singing. Paper never recorded that kind of silence properly. Finally, he said, where and when? Observation Habitat Theta 9. 3 cycles, no council regulation, no press, only observers who can admit they might be wrong. Nate smiled faintly. That's not a long list. Aelin tilted its head. Which is why your name is on it. The overhead drone whirred again. Reminder, do not feed virtual fauna. Nate chuckled. Relax, I'm not suicidal. When he boarded the transport 3 days later, he carried little. Caffeine rations, a notebook, and the certainty that the galaxy had forgotten what danger looked like when it didn't advertise itself. Somewhere behind him, in archive glass, a tiger paced digital brush. Somewhere ahead, 8 alien minds were about to be reminded what silence meant. The transport dropped out of FTL with a stomach-tugging lurch. Nate felt behind his eyes. The vessel was small, crewed entirely by automated systems. No greetings, no chatter, just recycled air and a hull hum that never stopped. The readout blinked their destination. Observation Habitat Theta 9. orbiting a dead world at the edge of mapped space, far from council scrutiny. A research dome built for experiments polite society pretended didn't exist. When the doors hissed open, Nate stepped onto a sterile docking platform. The corridors beyond curved in gentle arcs, walls pulsing faintly with power. He found Aelin Carrick's waiting, still with that tilted posture, as if leaning into a private thought. "You're early," Nate said. "I don't need to prepare figures," Ellen replied. They walked together into the amphitheatre. The chamber was wide, dim, tiered for 8 observers. Only 4 seats were filled. On the far side sat a Brakhor, massive and stone-scaled, his jaw resting on one fist like a bored executioner. To the left, a whip-thin Zarethi, black oil eyes unblinking, fingers twitching in faint calculations. Next to it, a Clithic, compact and restless, arms folding and unfolding like clockwork springs. None of them acknowledged Nate. He took his seat. Aelin flicked a control. The air thickened into projection, fully immersive, real-time simulation. A rainforest unfolded, dense canopy, wet air shimmering with heat. A river cut north to south, the sound of insects, the echo of unseen wings. For a moment, it looked like Earth. Then the stars overhead shifted, alien and wrong. In a clearing below, the tiger appeared. It was alive now, not archived pixels. The same heavy grace, shoulders rolling under fur, tail swaying with balance. It moved as if the forest had been built around it. Nate leaned forward slightly, though he'd seen it before. Seeing it here was different. "Introduce the comparative," Lynn said. Across the terrain, a shimmer solidified into another predator, taller than the tiger, built for speed. 6 spider-long limbs bent low, body tapering to a narrow head. Vertical eyes blinked out of sequence, scanning multiple angles at once. "Viral stalker," Ellen narrated. "Native to Verus Prime, precision hunter, accelerates to 70 kilometers in 6 strides, high-range sensory suite, never failed containment breach trials." Nate nodded slowly. "That's a hell of a resume." The simulation began. The Virel prowled the riverbank, long limbs dipping into the water, tongue flicking to taste currents. The tiger remained low, half hidden in shadow, patient. Minutes passed. The Brakhor shifted in his seat, bored. The Zarethi never blinked. Then the Virel froze, head lifted, body tensed. It had sensed something. Slowly it turned, toward the thicket where the tiger waited. The tiger hadn't moved, and then it did. A single step, muscles bunching, shifting weight forward. The Virel hissed, legs widening into a defensive spread. Its multiple eyes tracked flickers of green, shadow, fur. The tiger didn't break cover. Another step, then stillness. Nate smiled faintly. "Old school," he murmured. The alien observers leaned in. The Zarethi's fingers stilled. The Virel lunged first, predictable, efficient. It launched across the undergrowth,
limbs stabbing into earth, acceleration near instant. 70 kilometers an hour, a blur of spines and limbs. The tiger didn't retreat. It waited, and at the last possible heartbeat, it moved sideways, not back. A twist, a low spring, faster than mass should allow. Jaws snapped on the viril's shoulder, stripes vanished into chaos. The struggle was a sound more than a sight, tearing, snarling, the impact of bodies hitting ground. The viril's limbs thrashed, stabbing into dirt, carving trenches. But every strike missed. The tiger was too close, clamped on muscle and bone, dragging the larger creature down. Seconds stretched. Then it was over. The viral convulsed once, went still. The jungle noise returned, cautious, delayed. Silence filled the amphitheater. The Brachor chuckled, low and rattling. Efficiency. The Zerethi's voice was thin, almost mechanical. Impossible. The model is flawed. The Virale's reflex time exceeds human calculation. The tiger could not. It did, Nate said flatly. The Clythic clicked in agitation. Outlier result. We require more iterations before adjusting hierarchy. Nate leaned back, crossing his arms. That's the thing about outliers. They don't ask permission. The projection faded, leaving the dim amphitheater. The silence that followed was heavier than the one in the lecture hall. For the first time, the other species weren't sure whether they were observing an animal or a reminder.
The amphitheater dimmed. The projection lattice reset, humming faintly. Nate capped his pen and set it on the notebook. Second comparative, Aelin said. The jungle shifted. Shadows deepened. Air grew heavier. A figure emerged, tall, armored in ridged plates that changed color as it moved. Limbs jointed backward, head narrow with 3 eyes. Xylem hunt form, Aelin explained. Bred for battlefield predation. Camouflage, short-range psychic broadcast, localized disorientation. Sounds like something you don't want near a crowd, Nate muttered. The projection shimmered. The hunt form slipped through mud without sound, its armor breaking up outlines. It pulsed a psychic broadcast. Nate couldn't feel it, but the jungle did. The background noise faltered, birdsong cut short. Prey typically freezes, Aelin said. It reads asymmetry in the resumed chorus. The chorus didn't resume. Nate smiled faintly. That's your problem. He's not playing on your board. The hunt form adjusted, scanning. No tiger. It stepped forward carefully, confident. Then the tiger moved. Not from behind or front. Angles were human ideas. It came from inevitability. A low charge, shoulder into knee, snapping stability. Before the Xylem could recover, claws raked along armor seams, not cutting but loosening plates. The creature hissed in frustration. It pulsed another psychic wave, narrower, sharp. The tiger ignored it, sliding out of reach, then hitting again from the opposite side. Harassment, teaching limits. The Xylem tried cleverness, lunging, collapsing weight into a trap, but gravity wasn't on its side. The tiger slipped past, seized the neck seam below the cranial ridge,
and held, not thrashing, not rushing, just patience, tightening, waiting. The hunt form's struggles slowed, then ended. Silence rolled back into the jungle. A cicada clicked late. The brackor leaned forward, rumbling. No sound. An outlier, the Zarithi said quickly. We need more iterations, different variants. Nate cut him off. Outliers don't ask permission. The tiger stepped back from the body, licked blood from its muzzle, then, unexpectedly, dragged the corpse into brush, just enough to hide it from a casual passer-by. The observers went still. Behavioral residue, Ellen whispered, avoiding scavenger contact, or simply being itself. Nate's expression didn't change. Tidying up after the lesson. Polite, really. The projection dissolved, leaving silence. Pressure crept in from outside. Eileen's wrist comm chimed twice. They ignored it, then silenced it. Counselors request the raw feed. Interest is growing. The Zarithi folded their hands. We must escalate. A displacement predator, or open terrain to strip its cover. Parity only, Ellen said. Solitary against solitary, no tricks. Otherwise the record is theatre. The brackor grunted approval. Speak plain. A small thing waited and broke a strong thing with patience. That is enough. Judgment, Nate said, finally. Not instinct. Not intelligence the way you bottle it. Judgment. He refused the hunt form's timeline, made the silence his. That's why it worked. The brackor nodded slowly. Even the Zarithi had no retort. The tiger faded from the arena. The lights lifted. Messages left the station in urgent bursts. Ailin looked down at Nate. There will be a third trial. The others will demand it. Nate picked up his notebook. Then let's see if they're ready to hear the answer twice.
The chamber lights dimmed. The projection lattice flickered alive, humming faintly. Everyone leaned forward despite themselves. This time, there was no jungle, no shadows to conceal, just open plain, grassland under a wide white sky. The tiger appeared first, orange against green, alone, exposed. On the far side shimmered its opponent, a Krelex warform, taller, plated like living armor, its triple-jawed maw bristling with teeth. It roared, shaking the air, then charged. The tiger did not move. At the last second it stepped aside, a blur. The warform thundered past, gouging earth. It wheeled back, furious. Again it charged. Again the tiger slipped past, leaving only a shallow claw mark across unarmored flesh. It went on like that. Charge, miss, bleed. Charge, miss, bleed. Minutes stretched into an uneasy rhythm. The tiger never rushed, never chased, just patience made flesh. By the time the warform slowed, gasping, streaked with its own blood, the gallery was silent. The tiger circled once, then struck, low and final, jaws to the throat where armor could not reach. The warform collapsed. No one spoke. Finally, the brackor broke the silence with a low thump of his fist. Patience as weapon. That is the lesson. The Zarithi shifted uneasily, eyes fixed on the blank display. Aelin turned to Nate. This will divide them. Some will deny, others will demand proof. Nate closed his notebook. Doesn't matter. They've seen it. Can't be unseen. The projection dimmed. Messages already flooded the consoles. Calls to suppress the record. Requests for access. Accusations of bias. Nate stood. That's the thing about danger. It doesn't need recognition to exist. It just waits until you notice too late. The Brakhor leaned close, voice like stone. Your kind will not be ignored much longer. Nate only shrugged. We've been ignored before. Never lasts. They left the amphitheater. The system shut down behind them, leaving silence, thick, alive, like grass after a kill when even the wind pauses.